Hello everyone, welcome to the answer writing program. Today we'll be going to discuss 3 questions. 2 questions on these 2 topics, that is infrastructure, energy, port, road, airways, railways, etc. And the second topic would be investment model. So this is GS3 economy section. Let's take an overview of all the 3 questions. The first one is about the landlord model of port development. Second is related to Gati Shakti program. And the third one, which is current affair question, it is about the evergreen revolution. So let's start with the first question. Jawaharlal Nehru Port has become the first major port of the country to become 100% landlord port. So this is the context set by the question. What do you understand by the landlord model of port development? This is the first demand. This is demand 1. The second demand would be highlight the significance of the model to achieve the objectives of port-led development in India. So this is demand 2. So how we can start the introduction? So you can start the introduction with quoting some issues in the port sector. Then how these issues can be tackled by the strategic approach for port development, and how this landlord model of port development gains prominence. So you can link this way in introduction itself. So what are the issues in the port sector? Inefficiencies in operational management, then under investments in the infrastructure projects, then lack of modernization of the port. Some other issues like turnaround time is very high, approximately 2.5 days. There are issues in the cargo handling, depth issues, so we need dredging of the ports. So there are multiple issues which needs strategic approach to deal with. So what is the landlord model and how this can improve these issues? So what is the landlord model? It is about the delineating of the responsibility. In this, public governed port authority will act as a regulator as well as the landlord of the port. And what the private entity would do? It will take care of all the operational activities like cargo handling, warehousing, transportation, etc. with its superstructure and equipments. It means there is some port, the landlord is government, and it is giving or on rent or on lease to the private entity. So this private entity will take care of the operational activities and in return will pay some share of revenue to the government entity. So it will be the win-win situation for everybody. Like for the government, it takes the revenue from the private entity. Private entity will run its business, will earn the profits, and for the economy as whole, infrastructural development would be there, so it will boost the economic growth of the country. So this way, we have seen the basic scenario of what is landlord model and what is the port-led development, and we have also seen how to write the introduction. Next comes the body part. The first demand of the question is about significance of the landlord port model. Like how this landlord model will result into the development, or what are the other significances. When this private entity comes in to the scenario, what does it show? When the private entity comes, it comes with 2 things majorly. First is funds, second is technological advancements, plus expertise, plus innovations, plus specializations. With funds, it means increased private investments in the manufacturing and the upgradation of the port infrastructure, which may not be the very productive way of doing by the public sector alone. So it means the private sector when comes in with the great investment, it will lead to the development of the world-class infrastructure, when there is a world class infrastructure, it means there is the global competitiveness also. So this thing. Then second comes in the technological advancement. So when the private player comes in, multiple private player comes in, it boosts the competition, and when there is a competition, it drives efficiency. So when there is efficiency, there is technological advancements, expertise in the domains, it means it reduces the costs of the operations and also decreasing logistic costs. And when there is highly efficient manner, the operations are going on and less logistic cost is there, it means it has the high global competitiveness. The trade is Indian trade. So this improves the efficiency, and also when logistic cost is less, higher efficiency, it means better service delivery to the clients or the customers. Then next is risk mitigation. Now the public authority has the hold or the control over the core assets of the port, but the other operations, services or the other activities like the operation services, it's in the hand of the private player. So by delineating the responsibilities of the operational management to the private player, it means it saves itself, this public authority saves itself from the vagaries of the day-to-day operations risks. Like if there is a labor dispute, if there is some disruptions in the international trade, like river issues, ports issues, everything now is in the hands of the private player. So public player or the public entity is saved from all these inefficiencies. Then next is maintaining the public accountability. As the ownership of the core assets is still in the hands of the public authority, it can make private player adhere to some norms like safety, security, environmental norms, and it will be make more accountable to the public. Then next is employment generation. When any infrastructure project develops or creates or builds, it creates the job opportunities for the people directly in the operation services or in the other included or the linked infrastructural services or the infrastructural projects. Next is global competitiveness. By reducing the logistics cost, by improving the connectivity, by reducing the supply chain disruptions, it enhances the global competitiveness of Indian trade. So this way we have done or seen the significance of the landlord port model. Now let's come to the conclusion. In conclusion, we can write that this landlord based model, landlord port model, it has the potential to drive economic growth and it can enhance the trade competitiveness by reducing the logistics cost, by improving or enhancing the global trade competitiveness, by increasing the private player investments. So this way we are done with the first question. Let's take an overview of the model answer. Model answer is starting with the landlord model. What is it? Means the definition based introduction. Then we are seeing this objectives of the port-led development. These are some objectives. And finally, the significance. Why this objectives of the port-led development is written? It's not necessary to write, but as it is a model answer, we are just writing that, okay, these are some objectives of the port-led development. That is the capacity augmentation, new ports development, efficiency improvement, and then how link with the landlord port development model. And finally, we are connecting everything in here that they brings efficiency in the port operation, increased private investment. These are the objectives of the port-led development only. So it's not necessary to write this part. Directly you can start with this part. Finally, it is writing about the potential of this, that how it will increase the export competitiveness and economic growth of the country in long run. Now let's move on to the second question. What is Gati Shakti program? Discuss its objective and significance for the Indian economy. So this question has two parts, first and second, and it is divided into two parts. We have to write about the objective and significance for the Indian economy. So in introduction, you can write about some definition that what is Gati Shakti program. So Gati Shakti program, it's not absolutely like that it is only creating the infrastructure, but it is all about the integrated planning and the implementation of the different ministries' infrastructural projects. So it has three main visions or the mission. First is improve the infrastructural development at faster pace. Then second is addressing the issue of disjointed planning. Means what it will do? It will do the integrated planning plus implementation of infrastructural projects. And third is optimal allocation of resources. So these are the three main mottos of Gati Shakti program. So you can start with this thing. Now let's come to the objectives of PM Gati Shakti master plan. So as we have discussed that it will have the integrated planning and implementation of the infrastructure plan. Integrated planning means it will bring together different 16 ministries which are related to the infrastructural development like road ministry, railway ministry, aviation ministry, shipping ministry, etc. And what it will do? It will do the holistic or the integrated planning and do some collaborations, cooperations, and it will also have the Gati Shakti portal in which all the ministries can see the cross-sectoral initiatives or the activities what other ministry is doing in that particular domain. So it will enhances the accountability and transparency and will do all the infrastructural projects in the collaborative manner. Like for example, you must have seen in your city or the town that once the road is built, then again it starts digging up and lays down the drinking water pipeline. Again the road is again built and again it gets digged up and again some optical fiber comes in. So this is disjointed planning. If we have to make sure that the region is properly developed or the infrastructural development could be there, then it should be more integrated and holistic. Like if all the ministries with respect to drinking water, with respect to road, with respect to rail, with respect to communication and with respect to energy like electricity, all will do some collaboration and will see how this whole system in a systematic approach or the systems approach, how this area should be developed, and they will do some collaboration and will start making the infrastructure projects. So once the land is getting digged up, all the electrical wires, drinking water pipelines, optical fiber gets laid down and then the road construction will start. It will helps in optimal allocation of the resources and reduces the wastage of resources. It means the efficiency is getting improved. So this is PM Gati Shakti Yojana. Means the major thing is integrated planning. There will be some dashboard in which all the ministries could see the other activities so that they can monitor and evaluate the process in a very smooth manner. So integrated planning and coordinated implementation, then multimodal seamless connectivity. Like there will be coordination between Bharatmala, it means the roadways is going on in India. Then Sagarmala, port connectivity would be there, and then there will be some inland water transport would be there. So there should be the seamless connectivity for the people, for the movement of goods, services, people. Then next is reducing logistical cost. How it will reduce the logistical cost? By developing the infrastructure where there are loops or where their critical infrastructure is not there. So it will see which area will not have some infrastructure so that all the links of that area will be connected and there will be reduced in the supply chain costs and reduce the logistic cost. Next is it will try to make India the business capital, because now the reduced logistic cost would be there, ease of doing business would be there, transport facilities is there, there are direct linkages from the local consumer to the local producer. There is enhanced connectivity. So this will empowers the business partners also to come in and invest in India. So this will become the business capital of the world. Next come what we have to see, the significance of this. Again, by doing everything, it will boost economic growth. It will enhancement of the investment opportunities, because it will make sure that the ground is clear. No tax issues would be there, no connectivity issues would be there, no logistic issues would be there, so that all the businesses will come in and invest in India. Then when the infrastructure investments is there, infrastructure projects creation is there, it boosts the economic growth, it increases the job creation opportunities. Then reduction in regional disparity, because this is a systems approach. Now they will see which region has not any infrastructural projects. So disparity they will try to reduce. Then ease of flowing by end-to-end connectivity and by giving the job opportunities, by enhancing the transportation, by promoting the infrastructural development, it ensures the social justice to the people, ease of living to the people. Lastly, it comes with the conclusion that everything we have covered up in the body parts. So we can end our answer with the summary that Gati Shakti program has the potential to make India as a global economic powerhouse by 2025 if we properly implement this and we speed up the process of infrastructural creation projects. Okay, so let's take an overview of this model answer. Starting, what is Gati Shakti program, then objectives, then significance, and finally it is ending up with the summary that it aims to boost India's economic growth and ambitious economic goals by improving the transportation and logistic infrastructure. Now let's move on to the third question. What do you understand by the evergreen revolution? Focusing on the need of its introduction, explain how it can mitigate the effects of climate change. So first we need to write what is, means the definition of evergreen revolution, and second is need of evergreen revolution. Then we have to tell that how this green revolution can help in mitigating the effects of climate change. So let's start with the intro. Intro, you can write some background, or directly you can start with the definition of evergreen revolution. Background means there were the remarkable or the significant achievements of the first green revolution. It has taken out India from the tag or from the image of India or the nation with the begging bowl in the hands. It has done the remarkable success, but still there are some concerns. But it's also true that the green revolution was not inclusive and not equitable. So there is a need of the evergreen revolution to tackle these challenges. Or you can start with the definition, because it's directly the demand of the question. What is the definition of evergreen? By the name itself, evergreen means greening which remains forever. It means the productivity gains that last indefinitely without causing environmental and social harm. So this way you can start your introduction. Now next we have to see that what is the need of its introduction of evergreen revolution. Before then that, it's for your understanding that what are the components of the evergreen revolution. It means improvement of the soil health and the fertility, nutritional security at the household or the individual level, eco-friendly agricultural practices, green practices, sustainable management of locally available natural resources, not dependent on export. It should be like improving the Atmanirbhar Bharat in the case of agriculture, in the case of natural resources excess. Then lab to land demonstration. It means with the evergreen revolution, we have to do more and more technological advancements like drought resistant seeds, drought resilient seeds, smart irrigation, so that it can take care of all the negatives or the vagaries of the climate change, or what we have already depleted our natural resources, we can take care of that. Then the implementation of the rainwater harvesting, etc. Now let's see the first part of the body, need for the evergreen revolution. See, we have already discussed in the introduction that there was the downside of the Green Revolution. It was not inclusive and not equitable with respect to population wise, with respect to region wise, and with respect to crop wise. Means still population is there which is stunted, which is wasted, which has malnutrition or undernutrition. So now with Evergreen Revolution we have to take care of all these aspects. With region, there are disparities like in Haryana, Punjab, Western Uttar Pradesh, in the northern India, and some states or some regions in the southern India. They got the benefit of the Green Revolution, but not all the areas. So with Evergreen Revolution, we have to focus, or so the other left out area should be the areas for the core intervention. Next is crop wise. We have focused more on rice, wheat, cotton, but other crops with the nutritional benefits they left over. So now again it's time to boost pulses, coarse grains, millets, fruits, vegetable, etc. to enhance their productivity and to enhance their market as well. So this was the downside of the Green Revolution. Then shift towards a less nutritious crop, again rice, wheat. So now it's time to move on to the crop diversification. Then over dependence on import. We are dependent on imports in pulses, oilseeds, etc. So now we have to be more Atmanirbhar in food security as well as the nutrition security. Then next is soil degradation. With unregulated use of chemical fertilizers and the chemical pesticides, it degraded or destroyed the soil capabilities. So again in the Evergreen Revolution, now it's time to rejuvenate the soil properties and to save the soil from getting more degraded or depleted. So this was the need for Evergreen Revolution. Now let's see how this Evergreen Revolution will mitigate the effects of the climate change. What climate change will do? It will increases the temperature. How climate change is getting increased or boosted? With the greenhouse gases emission, with the carbon emissions, increasing carbon emissions, etc. So with the Evergreen Revolution, with the promotion of the crop diversification and the climate resilient crop varieties, it will take care of all the climate vagaries, whatever the climate change can put the negative impacts. So the Evergreen Revolution will do what it will do. It will promote the crop diversification. It will promote the climate resilient crop varieties, so that the negative impacts of the climate change like increasing temperature, it will not directly harm our crops, or our crops would be such that it will be drought resistant. Like you can quote some examples, like government has come up with 1700 varieties of the drought resilient crops, seeds. Then second is tackling water scarcity. Is reducing, evaporation is increasing, or the reduced or changed precipitation patterns. So there are water crises also due to climate change. So how it will take care? By using drip irrigation, by rainwater harvesting, and by watershed management, it will take care of water scarcity. Next is greenhouse gases reduction. So instead of open burning of the crop residue, it will promote mulching, so as to save the soil moisture and also to save the soil from erosion. Then using the composting techniques of using that crop residues to make it into the fertilizer. Then crop residue for the bioenergy production. We have seen in the earlier classes also, that is the second generation biofuels production is from the agricultural waste or from the crop residue, like the stalks from the paddy. So instead of directly burning them, which increases the greenhouse gases emission, we are using this waste as a fertilizer, as the energy source. Then next is carbon sequestration. To not only reduces the greenhouse gases which the agriculture emits in the atmosphere, it tries to sequester the carbon also. It means doubling the effects to reduce the climate change. How? By planting the trees on the agricultural ground. Agriculture is one of the major sources of the greenhouse gases emission or the carbon emissions. So this evergreen revolution, what it will promote? It will promote the growing of the trees along this borders or the margins of the agricultural land. So it will reduces the greenhouse gases emission. It will enhancing the sequestration power of the agricultural land. Not only this, it reduces the soil erosion, and also these trees will help providing shades to the crops, which reduces the impact of increasing temperature on directly the crops. Then next is preventing the soil degradation. With the unregulated use of the chemical and the chemical fertilizers and the pesticide, instead of using this, it promotes the integrated pest management practices like biological controls and natural predators. So these are some mitigating effects of the for the climate change. Next comes the conclusion. In conclusion, you can write the summary that this evergreen revolution, it aims to bring agriculture, health and nutrition together and works on them as a systems approach, as a one unit. Not only boosting the agricultural productivity and taking the health in the silos and the nutrition in the silos, it will see everything as a one unit, and to boost, enhances the agricultural productivity, take care of health issues, increasing the nutritional aspects or the nutritional security. So this was our third question. Let's see the model answer. In model answer, it is starting with the context. M.S. Swaminathan, the father of Green Revolution, described the evergreen revolution as directly it is giving the definition, then some diagram, then need for evergreen revolution and the mitigating the effects of climate change. Finally, it is concluding with the just the summary only. Evergreen revolution is necessary to feed the world in the sustainable manner while causing no further harm to the already depleted but valuable natural resources. So this was it for the day. Thank you and have a nice day.